Hello. I was going to say happy Sunday then, but just hello. I'm just seeing myself for the first time today. I look awful with bits of paint on me. But it's a good sign that it's like war wounds without the blood and scars. Just a bit of paint. Weird morning today. Let's just address the battery 1 second. It wasn't, the charging stopped working. Right, I'm probably going to need to tune back in a second. The battery's almost certainly going to die. I've been having problems with the chargers because of Mercury retrograde. No matter what I do, if they're new, if they're not, after one use they seem to be disposable. But yeah, they're not charging. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna let the stream go. The battery's gonna die. I just won't accept the charger. Oh, right. It says we've just caught it, but I've only got 1%, so it still might die. Yeah. Just the pressure's off a bit. Well, I don't want to say the pressure's off a bit, but what it is where things have been so stressed. I've been running on cortisol like 24/7. There's not a moment in my life I can label or resembles life in the from normality. You know, from normality you don't. If you need to eat, for instance, you can sit down and eat. If you need to go to the toilet, you can sort of go to the toilet and they don't feel wrong. But I'm sort of, I mean, to a certain extent, this is what we all do on some level anyway, given the world, but I'm working my way through everything. Like, to eat is work, to go to the toilet is work, to go for a walk is work, to sit down and watch YouTube is work. And there's no real element of anything in my body. You know, softness, kindness, and despite how I look, I'm more of a woman than a man, and I really appreciate those elements to life as much as I'm more than happy getting mucky and doing some DIY if the original elements are in place originally. So in other words, if I'm resting, then I'm happy to exert myself, but I'm not happy to exert myself if I'm not resting. I guess that's what makes me a woman rather than a man. Because I'm still a man, we're a bit of idiot. We're a bit of an idiot. And that's how I've gone about life. My whole life, just exert. Don't worry about rest, or at least, don't worry about it. Rest will always be there for me when I need. And just a positive mind is where it's at to get me through. But my mind is less than positive at the moment, and from what I've learnt from life, it's taught me to rest first and then exert. Unless we absolutely have to, and life is saying to me I absolutely have to at the moment. So that's where I'm at. But the good thing is, I think, that I'm working my way through the cortisol. I'm working my way through the torture of this year. I'm working my way through the side effects of the last course of antipsychotics I took. And I'm years away from getting to the final place, but I've got no choice but to work my way through it. It's just what's on my plate, and I've got to go about it the best I know, don't I? So that's what I'm doing there. And I'm sitting here at the flat. Well, I'm sitting here at the boat flat, shed. And I'm looking at all the little things that need to get done and prioritising them in my mind, because that's how I rest at the moment, to look at the work that needs to be done and prioritise it from being a total mess. And the relief that gives me is rest. That's how I'm resting. And I'm looking at the work that needs to be done, and what's happening is where all the jobs up until now have been a case of, the fundamentals, structural, really thinking about logistics in terms of the boat and loading it and blah blah blah. From how I've found the boat at the moment, because it's a mess, but I'm trying my best. It's an organised mess to a certain extent, but I'm hitting the more enjoyable. I'm finding the more enjoyable parts of the boat now. The work of the boat. Not that the hard logistical parts were unpleasant, because I like DIY, and I've come to appreciate the application of presence, which I guess some would call mindfulness, to life. And if you've got to clean a really dirty boat, for instance, there's no difference to cleaning a dirty boat to painting it, in terms of being present in the moment and doing the job. All right, when you finish painting it, the boat looks clean. Well, the boat looks like a nice colour. But the same when you clean a boat. It looks like a mess before, and when you clean it, it looks a lot cleaner, as much as it's not the final part. So that's the difference. So what I'm getting at is all the work that needs to be done to the boat is like neither here nor there for me. I just want to be present in the moment and be present with what I'm doing, and that's it. When you're present with what you're doing, you do it to a standard that you see appropriate, whether that's cutting corners or not, whether it's being absolutely anal about, a perfect task or not. But you get something from just being present with life, and that's what I appreciate at any stage, whether it's the nicer elements or the non-nicer elements. But either way, I can't deny the bits of work that I'm seeing for the first time are like, this is how the boat's going to look on a presentation level. For instance, I've rested a big quartz worktop slab behind the stove, which is going to be like a stove backing, but it's loose at the moment. And it sort of needs fixing into place because, well, needs fixing into place, and it's a small job. I'm thinking, well, how do I go about it? And I looked at it, and I've seen how, and all I do with final presentation is like, with interior decorating for myself, it's like I use it on a creative sort of level. So I just look at all the parts that I have, all the tools I have, not wanting to spend any more money, not a pound more. How can I get that job done, given everything I have, to the utmost standard, and make it look as nice as possible as well? And I said to myself, oh, I've got a bit of bamboo. If I just put a bit of bamboo across the top in a certain way, fix the bottoms in place, it'd be a really, really nice, simple job, and it'll really look quite nice. And I see that as the F1 stage, because with F1, what I liked about the sport was that there's a lot of luck in it. There's a lot of applied theory, applied logic to luck. You're dealing with elements of weather, you're dealing with elements of opponents having crashes, and when opponents have a crash, if it's serious enough, it can alter the race in a certain way, and if it alters the race in a certain way, you can gain or lose positions. And there are all of these things to think about with F1 that, say, isn't so present in football, for instance, when the competition is a bit more ridiculous. You've got some teams valued at £1 billion, and others that in the same competition that are probably don't even hit 100 million. So it's a ridiculous disparity in football, and there isn't so much room for luck within that. I mean, if it rains, it doesn't really matter so much. The players just have to carry on and play in the rain. All right, you might change the tactics of the sport to the weather, but ultimately it shouldn't really affect you as much as being out in the open in an F1, where friction and the rubber and the tyres and all of that is fundamental. So that's what I saw and enjoyed in F1. It was the luck element, and seeing how just any given Sunday, the favourites could win, and most of the time they do, but how the luck interplays with the sport and alters the final standings. And if it just looks like a standard race in F1, and it's known for a track with not much taken over, and I've watched half of it, and it's pretty much bog standard and the favourites are winning, I'll turn it off. I'm not going to endure the boredom of that day. But on the whole, there is a bit of luck and applied luck, and room for smaller teams to come out on top in a race on occasion. But yeah, that's what I see about the work at the moment, because this is kind of how I did interior design for myself at the flat. It was just like, right, how can we make this look good? How can we make it creative? How can I do it on no budget, minimal budget? How can I'll make it even more practical than it would otherwise be. You know, just those sort of ideas, and just using what we have there in front of us, and I come up with a solution. And it's the same sort of thing, the same idea from my perspective, in that I'm just working with what I've got. I'm trying to make it as best as possible. And where I would watch luck, I'm sort of watching luck in a different way, because I didn't plan for that stove backing in any way. It's like, as I went along, I collected that big quartz slab out of a skip, because I knew I would need, well, backing for the stove, and I've collected other smaller bits. I didn't know how much I'd need. I didn't know how it would all go together. I didn't have any idea. And now's the time where all of this stuff is going to start going together. And it's like, well, all right, I need to put it together. I'm not going to spend a penny more on interior design when there are more fundamental necessities calling for my finances and energy in life. But at the same time, we all like stuff to look pretty. And I would rather it be prettier than, well, left at an angle, loose, not quite fixed into place. And yeah, I'm seeing what life has given me, in essence. I'm seeing what all of these months of slog to get myself to a position where I can make a start. And I've collected a lot of stuff. I'm seeing what the universe, what luck allows me to put as a final showpiece, which doesn't really matter for anything. Like the F1 sport, it doesn't really matter for anything, does it? But if you just observe life, if you observe synchronicities, if you observe the finer elements that make up an obscene sport. The amount of money that goes into Formula 1 and football is obscene. It shouldn't be allowed. But then to watch it and see how nature, how luck, how the universe can alter that grossness to favour anybody is it's a pleasant watch in a way. So that's how I saw the building work today, and it makes it fun for me, because it's like I'm here, I'm giving all the energy to making a boat, making a home for myself. And if I had thousands of pounds sitting in the bank, no doubt I'd probably buy a perfectly cut slab to go behind the stove, and I'd do this and I'd do that, and it'd all be perfect. But then you sort of finish the project and you look at your perfect boat, and it just doesn't quite fit in with reality, man. You know, it's like turn on the news to see the remnants of some war, that's taking place in the world, and families with their homes blown up, and missing family members, and missing limbs, and God knows what else. How are they going to have a future? You know, forget the fact they've lost a home. Forget the fact they've lost a family member in the present moment. Think about their future, man. I'm here struggling to put together my house and my flat because I'm worried about being homeless, or I'm worried about not having running water, and these are all serious concerns. But in honesty, that's as bad as my life is going to get in the future. Well, I'm a bit of an exception because I'm absolutely insane. And my life will be a lot harder for not having running water. Because my life is just harder in the present moment than most people. I guess I don't have the mental capabilities to deal with the complexities of life. That's what is my mental health. But where I'm thinking about not having running water and going without electricity to a certain extent, you know, where I'm having to use solar panels and stuff, it's a case of how can I be there at the end looking at my perfect boat and to see anything on the news that resembles people not having effing futures, you know. They've lost their home, they've lost family members, they've lost limbs. And if they're in a war-torn country, how long is it going to take for the country to sort itself out? Even if they don't provide people with the accommodation, just to be able to provide the infrastructure for the individual to go to work if they can work anymore. What happens if they can't work? Can you imagine them in the moment looking at their future? So it's a bit of an impossibility to have a perfect home, perfectly presentable house. And the way I take an attitude to it is that I can't spend a penny extra, a pound extra, or if I do, it'll be a treat, you know, once in a blue moon. But I can't really be spending money and time on interior design and presentation for how things are going to look, when at the end of it will make me throw up, if I'm honest with myself, to what's going on with the world. And, you know, that's on just the being real level, but on an ego level, it's not where it's at, is it? I mean, yeah, it's nice to have a nice home, but I know I can have a nice home without things being perfect and without me spending a lot of money on them. And I know, just looking at the situation, that if I was a little less real with life, I could balance it out, you know. I could say I could do this, I could do that, I could do the other. What I'm trying to say is like, it's possible to be largely egoless within the act of making a home perfect. If you're not looking at the whole world. If you look at the whole world and then try to be egoless, you sort of have to balance out your actions against others. And this is as far as I can see I'm allowed in terms of my ego. Is to say to myself, right, well, money has to be really at a minimum spent on interior design. Fair enough, the necessities are important because they allow for function, they allow for look, I've got a serious mental health disorder and my life is very hard. If I've got to think about going without running water, going without electricity. I mean, given the context of my life, it's too much to ask of me, because I'm here in the moment and I'm looking around at the 7-8 million people that are surrounding me in London, and I'm thinking most of them have running water, most of them have electricity, and I'll feel hard done by. Alright, most of the world doesn't have, I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of the world doesn't have running water, a lot of the world doesn't have electricity. A lot of the world suffers a lot harsher reality than I'm going through. But I know just where I am, that 8 million people around me with running water and electricity, I say to myself, you know what? When I'm going through a hard time in my mental health, to try and remember the person that in the parts of the world that are really struggling, and try to live in solidarity to them, is going to be near impossible. I won't be able to do it in the present moment because my life is too harsh in the immediate. There'll be an element of coldness to life that I'll experience from not having hot water or heat or electricity because of where I am in the world. So I ask for the necessities given what I know of my mental health. But I can't really raise myself anymore at the moment. I can't say to myself, right, well, you know, there's this war going on in this part of the world and these people don't have anything. There's no point in me trying to live like them, trying to be in solidarity to them, unless I feel really moved by the cause. That way I can keep it in mind all the time. But when I'm going mad with my own problems in my own mental health, and it keeps you present in this world, you don't think about a soul. You don't think about the suffering in the world. You don't think about the favelas, the famines, the war-torn countries, the outbreaks of serious disease like polio and all of that, where they're not able to be managed. And we've got a serious disease that is killing, the coronavirus, but it just sounds a bit like a common cold on steroids at the moment. It doesn't really sound much more than that. Think about an outbreak of tuberculosis or polio that shuts down a whole country. It's like, imagine getting that into check. And you're a poor country and you don't have the rest of the world pumping out vaccines left, right and centre for you, and you're in it alone sort of thing. And it's going to be a lot more difficult, isn't it? But either way, I know in the present moment I'll forget all of that. I know in the present moment all that will really matter is feeding myself on a daily basis, providing the bare necessities for myself, and just calming life. And unfortunately, to really be there on any level that considers humanity as a whole is you're not able to ask for it. It's the same as the person working 2 jobs just to put food on their plate and pay the rent. You're going to be working, man. That's what your focus is. That's what your life is. You're not going to be thinking about the injustice of the world on a greater extent, because it doesn't really matter. There's no more you can do in your life than work 2 jobs to put food on your plate and pay the rent. Even if you wanted to, you can't really socialise. All right, you might have something in your life that you do. Maybe you enjoy a bottle of wine or a few cans of beer at the weekend to yourself, that's pretty humble, you know? It's not that extravagant, is it? Maybe you enjoy sitting down with the TV. What is it, £15 a month for the direct debit? Something like that, isn't it? £30 a month. They don't do it on monthly instalments anymore. It's like 2-3 months and then quarterly or something. So it works out a little bit more. But I think it works out to about £15-20 a month. It's not the most extravagance, is it? You've got nothing in life. All right, it's not the conscious thing to do, but you're working 2 jobs to put food on your plate. You're working in an illogical world. What you're doing on a daily basis, going to a shop, serving customers with this fictitious thing called money so they can buy electrical items or clothes they don't need or whatever else. Man, I need to move to Cuba. I'm telling you, it's like Cuba, from what I understand of it, it's just like pure practicality. And in that practicality is beauty. And in that beauty is health. What I understand of Cuba is that I don't even know the politics, man, but something happened back in the day with America and Cuba. Cuba got isolated. They had some cigar smoking dictator as their leader, and what I understand of that cigar smoking leader is that he was a bit switched on. He was like, right, to manage the country I need to know how it all works, from farming to infrastructure, and he would go and spend days learning about the farming industry, learning about different elements of the whole country so it could function. And they really went back to basics. They said, right, well, we're not going to be getting cars in for a while, are we? We need to keep the cars running that we've got. And that's why, from what I understand, and all of this, take it with a pinch of salt, I'm speaking from a distance, from what I understand. But, you know, the cars are still running from the 50s. And there isn't a reason why they shouldn't be. You know, they were made a bit more solid back then, and that's the time that you want the cars to keep running, because they're a lot more simpler. They didn't have the electronics of modern day cars that, well, were really complicated. They were simple machines. The steel was built like a lot thicker than whatever they're made of today. And in that time period, they could have been maintained, and they have been maintained. And life becomes slower. And no amount of land is left to insanity anymore. You have no idea about my autism. I walk around London and I see little sections of land cornered off to nobody. It's like, we own this, we are the council. Yeah, you own it, but I don't think you remember, because you've just sectioned it off for nobody, for the squirrels to enjoy. What the fuck? What the point is there of a council owning a bit of land for the squirrels to enjoy when this is the present moment in terms of world politics? And they've taken every little bit of land, from my understanding, in the cities, and they've made it into little farms, like mini farms with little gardens of allotments. Imagine the allotments of London, that being the coronavirus. Can you imagine all the little bits of land that you're walking around that just don't make sense to anybody? If it's a park, people are only going to sunbathe there and boost their egos. Nobody's really going to do any exercise or just enjoy nature because it's a park. You go to forests for nature. Use all of that for like a massive allotment. You know, and just every little bit of land. That's the sort of mentality, you know, just, right, this is life, this is the world, this is the infrastructure, but we don't really apply to the outside world anymore. What can we do as a population of this nation to make ourselves as strong as possible? And then it becomes about waste management, and that's what I'm all about, man. That's what I love, because that's what makes sense in this world. In terms of nature to this insanity, it's all about waste management. It's realising that for all intents and purposes, recycling is a joke. Well, at least from the centre, where I grew up in northeast London, there was a recycling plant that was built nearby at what was on the grounds of, I think the incinerator was still there, but they built a recycling plant next to it. And I remember my uncle telling me a story. He basically was speaking to the recycling truck drivers, and it was like, well, they got into a conversation about how does it get recycled, and they said, well, we just burn it. Paper burns, plastic burns, it's fuel, and that's all it is. How I'm sure there are more proper recycling methods out there now, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the recycling centres still apply that logic. Just burn it because it burns, and that's recycling. We'll just clump it all together and use that as fuel to make electricity or some bollocks like that. I don't know. But it's not really up to par. And why are we sending off all of this fuel to localised centre, to regional centres, when we could use it for ourselves? Where's the logic? And then to receive electricity on tap. You know, it's like in India, people live. Well, we send. I think if it's not India, it's somewhere in China. But Europe hasn't got the room for waste, and we send it off to other parts of the world. And where we send it there, people who have nothing live off our scraps. That's the mentality of this world. There are people in this world that have no choice but to live off our scraps. Tell me if anybody's spiritual out there, if anybody wants to claim an egoless life, if anybody wants to claim love on any level, when that is the situation, how can we really continue with society as it is? Don't tell me that we're doing this so those few people can have something. That would be the biggest bollocks ever. We're doing this for insanity. If we cubified the West, I'm almost certain the balance of our action in that moment, where we take control of our sickness and bring it to health, will resonate around the world. And where we start to balance out the logical high that we are having here in the West, I'm sure the insane low others are having there in the deprived parts of the world will start to balance out as well. And wealth will redistribute accordingly. Because what it is, money doesn't exist. And economics is economics. So if we start to do things one way, economics will have to change accordingly. So it's not a problem. We have a system there to balance it out. That's what I'm saying. To work in our favour. Do whatever we need if it's moving in terms of health. And those people that are dependent upon our scraps will survive. Because we have an economic system that's there, that's meant to be there, well, I'd hope for the good of the people, but it's there for the good of the monetary system. Yeah, man. I think it would be cool to cubify. We'd slow down. Life would slow down. We'd have all the necessities we need. Because at least here in the UK, it's one of the best infrastructures in the world. Already in place, you know. If anything, the UK is one of the most ideal countries to start the revolution of cubifying. The reason is because we are a nation. We've just stuck our middle fingers up to the rest of Europe. And we are our own country. We have world-leading infrastructure. So we don't need any more. We have control of our borders. All we really need to say is, right, let's take care of what we have. Get that mentality into the people. And we're going to start living, guys. Let's be an example to the rest of the world. And because we've not at war with anybody in the first instance, and we still have means of trade open to us, and we're not going to go without anything we need, man, we could be like Cuba on steroids. Forget coronavirus on steroids, we could be Cuba on steroids. We could flourish in the mentality that Cuba birthed. You know, it was really about being honest with ourselves as politicians out there, to say we're doing this for what purpose? Is it to fill our own pockets? Because if it's to fill our own pockets, then we just do our job to the best of our ability that way. Or are we here to serve the people? And or are we here to really do as good as we can in our job? Because either way, if you are, you're going to start asking serious questions. For instance, the pharmaceutical corporations, they get away with murder. Where can we start taking control back against them? Not for any conspiracy theory, but because they have so much freedom in this modern world, and it doesn't make sense. As a country, we should take back that control and really look at all options, you know. It's like the day that the NHS starts to re-implement enemas as like the first protocol when you arrive at hospital, I'll realise that we've done it, we've cubified again, we've gone insane from the 1950s with the influx of, whatever. Maybe our inflated ego from winning the war to our battered bodies of, you know, what was left. We went, right, we need to get ourselves together, and we've got ourselves together, and we're like, actually, we went a bit too far. We're a bit ill, but we've realised it. We'll get things back in check now. Let's start with the enemas again at hospital. Let's realise the body, how it works, instead of letting the National Health Service really have been guided and run by the pharmaceutical industry. The resting point for the NHS is how good are the medications. And well, all I know is that growing up, I was told 1 in 4 people would have cancer in their lives. I've recently seen that statistic go to 1 in 2. I'll leave that up to you to make what you will of an advancing scientific, technological, innovative race. That figure is increasing, when science and technology should be progressing the other way. And yeah, we can We can find the UK version of the Cuban cigar, innit? What would we have? I mean, I can't see people walking around with cigars here in the UK, but it's a culture. The UK has a drinking culture, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are cultures around the world that have their socialising based in intoxication, in alcohol. Yeah, on some sort of conscious level it's not right, but if we're perfect beings when we come together, maybe it's to experience ourselves in non-perfection, and that's the point of alcohol. If it's drunk in a responsible way, it doesn't have to be unhealthy. And maybe that's the first thing we do. We say, right, forget the enemas, they come second. We need to take care of ourselves. We like beer, we like wine. Let's make a probiotic, healthy beer for the people, so that when they're drinking their alcohol, yeah, it's not great for the liver, but at least they'll be getting healthy probiotics into them, which will sort their digestion out. And sorting their digestion out will save their NHS millions of pounds. And sorting their digestion out will sort out and balance out their emotional state that really is the primary fear of a drinking culture. Emotional outbursts and blah, blah, blah. But if it's probiotic, it kind of works to get your emotions in check, because the emotions are governed by the second brain, which is the stomach. And if that's got a load of probiotics going into it on a regular basis, and is regular and has good bowel movements, and we can enjoy ourselves at the same time. All we have to do is not buy the unhealthy beer, buy the healthy beer. Can you imagine a country in this world that has a state-owned beer company because of the health of their people, because they're fucking serious about making it in this illogical world? We could have the first royal beer company. We need to make a petition about this. Send it to the House of Commons. I was trying to think for a split second, is there any names that we could give it? Well, what would you call it? The Royal Beer Company. It's painful to watch such a country that has so much influence, power. We're talking about, I'm here trying to manage a budget of like £500, £1,000 a month. And then you think like this country has a budget of billions and trillions, and they're still making ideological mistakes. Or I say mistakes, they're just making the mistakes of social pressure, peer pressure. That's all that's happening. We're adolescents at the moment in terms of a national stance, and we're just like, oh, we do this, okay, we don't want to be different, we need to have friends. Well, as people, we've said, fuck the friends, we need control of our own land. I'm sorry. That's what's just been said, hasn't it, with Brexit? And either way, whether 50% of the people are behind it or not, it's what's just happened. We've just told Europe to go F themselves. Europe is a big money pit. Well, we're doing it for our own borders, aren't we? We're doing it for our own sovereignty. If we would have carried on down the road of the European Union, we would have become the UK, the European Union West formerly known as the United Kingdom. How many years would it have been before we would have just become the European Union, and this country, this bit of land, would be called coordinate XY1. This land over here, coordinate JF4. Because that doesn't really matter any more than that, does it, when you're part of the European Union? But we've claimed our sovereignty. Now, in my head, to the past, that's a bad thing, claiming sovereignty. But it doesn't need to be. We could be leaders. We could be examples for the rest of the world. Are we reclaiming our borders because we don't like the nationality and the heritage of those filthy immigrants, people taking our jobs because we don't know where they come from? Or are we reclaiming our borders through sanity? Because we understand the world, we understand humanity, and we understand that we were on a money train to staying at the top of the world with the club we were in, you know, all the popularity in the school. But we would have lost ourselves, wouldn't we, within that culture? We would have become the European Union, and I guess people might have been scared by that. So either way, there's lots of ideas today, lots of things to think about on this Sunday morning chat. I need to get on with the day, with work. Yeah, we'll check in soon.